stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, girls. It's 4 o'clock, and respecting your time, we're going to start on time and we're going to end on time. My name is Father Jay Risk from St. Mary's Episcopal Church in Park Ridge, and I'm a leader with United Power for Action and Justice.
Good afternoon. My name is Alia Hussein, and I am the Chair of Civic Engagement for the Council of Islamic Organizations of Greater Chicago, and I'm a leader for DuPage United. We are co-chairing this action today of the 4 Chicago Industrial Areas Foundation affiliates: Lake County United, United Power for Action and Justice in Cook County, Fox River Valley Initiative of Kane County, and DuPage United. We wish to thank the Zakat Foundation for sponsoring this action and the staff of Maine East High School, along with Principal Pressler. If any of you needs translation, please go to the foyer and someone will be there to assist you.
You have before you the agenda for today. Is there a motion to accept it? Is there a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Carried. We welcome today all 10 candidates for the Attorney General of the state of Illinois. State Senator Kwame Raoul, former Governor Pat Quinn, Committeeman Aaron Goldstein, Chief Administrator of the Chicago Department of Police Accountability Sharon Fairley, Chicago Park District President Jesse Ruiz, Illinois State Representative Scott Drury, former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti, Mayor Nancy Roddering, and Attorney Erica Harold. And Gary Grasso, Commissioner of DuPage County. We know that Erica Harold is going to be leaving immediately following the introductions because she's a featured speaker at an event in Rockford. Mr. Grasso is also going to be at that event, but will be staying to address you all. We also know that Erica will not have an opportunity to speak to us today, but we are deeply grateful for all 10 of the candidates to be here today in a show of solidarity for civic engagement.
And we welcome you, the 1,400 community leaders present today, representing over 85 churches, mosques, synagogues, and civic organizations, which collectively have over 200,000 members. Rabbi Ricky Camel of DuPage United, would you lead us in an opening prayer?
In the Jewish mystical tradition, there is an understanding of 2 sefirot, or aspects of the divine, which are judgment and compassion. Both of these must be present in the world. However, when judgment becomes greater than compassion, evil is born. And when compassion goes greater than judgment, justice can be curtailed. Now I thank all of you for being here and offer us this prayer. In the name of our ancestors, our mothers, and our fathers, may we all watch these 2 aspects within ourselves, giving compassion to all who are treated unfairly by uncaring systems, giving compassion to the vulnerable and understanding that circumstance, not always merit, is the cause of many ills. But let us also give justice to all who may be harmed in our great state. Justice for those who are harmed and giving safety and security, and even justice for perpetrators with a system of rehabilitation. We understand these 2 aspects, which often seem to cancel each other out, but must remain in balance. We are reminded of the words, 2 of the greatest commandments that we have: love your neighbor as you would yourself, and justice, justice, you shall pursue. Amen.
I'd like to ask Mr. Irshad Khan of Lake County United to lay out the purpose of today's meeting.
Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. My name is Irshad Khan. and I'm from Islamic Foundation North, Libertyville. Islamic Foundation North is a founding member of Lake County United. Today, we're gathered here 1,200 strong from 4 counties representing 85 member institutions. We're not here as individuals, but we are here as members of synagogue, churches, mosques, nonprofit, and civic associations all the way from Naperville to Chicago, from Waukegan to Aurora. We are nonpartisan, and we are funded by our dues-paying institution, and we do receive some funds, but we do not accept any government money. We do not have all the same ideology. We are a mix of institutions, but our strategies speak to the people of very different experience and perspectives. We believe that democracy is about relating to the people outside our own tribes and finding solutions we can negotiate among us and agree upon. This is the first contested Attorney General race in 15 years. And today, we have an opportunity to show each of these 10 candidates from both parties who we are as a group of affiliated associations. Our members and families care about certain issues, and why we require a public relationship with each of you to work on our current issues as well as the future issues. We at Islamic Foundation North met with our high school youth to hear what are the issues and concerns they're facing in the school. I was really surprised to hear from them the biggest problem they're facing today is being bullied, most frequently for their culture and faith. I want to work so our future generation won't have to go through being bullied, being deported, and being shot. Now I suspect we're not alone in the issues that we have been focusing and issues that we have been going through. I'm sure there are a lot of people here who has some of the family members or somebody in their family suffering from serious depression and mental health. I know we're not alone. Can you please stand and show the support of how many of your family members do have this problem and issues that you're going through? Thank you, thank you. Look around. We're not alone on this issue. We all know Illinois is fiscally broke and often corrupt, To tackle this serious issue in Illinois, we have to act strategically and creatively. Our strategies involve identifying waste and redirecting funds. Government is not an answer or fix to everything. There is a common theme that our strategies that we work on, the issues come face-to-face interaction and listening. Our issues are not rooted in ideology or generalities. Our strategies are proactive, long-term, and effective. Our strategies are based on deep local knowledge of our cities, towns, counties, and township, and we keep understanding on the power dynamics. We are looking at the Attorney General that is willing to make tough decisions, where they need to spend his and her time effectively. Please, do not do many politicians has done, try to please everybody. which is what led to the state to the banker of bankruptcy. Where we have to spend time and resources should be based on who and what we are creating as a real impact. We commit to you that we will come with the well-researched and effective strategies, and we commit to you that we're going to stand alongside you when you make tough decisions to act on these issues. I am really excited. I am excited that I want to get started. How about you all? Are you excited? Are we ready? Are we ready? Let's get to work.
As you came in, you were given an agenda and a one-page description of our current work. On the back, you will see all member institutions of the 4 organizations here today. Member institutions pay dues, and they make the commitment to regularly have face-to-face conversations with their own members as well as people in their neighborhood. Now we are going to hear some of the stories that have emerged from those member institutions and our strategies for tackling these issues. I'd like to invite Lamont Ballantyne, Piper Hodson, Mike Grondin, and Imelda Salazar to the stage, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Lamont Ballantyne from Congregation Etz Chaim, DuPage United. After serving 4 years on the Illinois Army National Guard, I moved to Des Moines, Iowa to escape the violence on the south side of Chicago. While having dinner in a restaurant in Des Moines, there was an armed robbery. I was shot 5 times and my friend was killed in front of me. I was in a coma for 3 months to awake to find both of my legs amputated. My emotional trauma was not addressed for many years, and severe depression got in the way of me leading a fulfilling life. This led to divorce and spiraled into deeper depression, which led to me being homeless. In the first 2 to 3 months on the streets, I found myself falling into the homeless lifestyle, which led me to a mental breakdown as the winter months were approaching. I also saw the mental breakdown of other clients in the homeless shelter. People were suffering from mental illnesses that were not being addressed. I felt that my back was against the wall, but then I was asked to be a peer leader in a support group called the Winter Circle. I started to feel better about myself. People began to look up to me and trust me. They shared very intimate stories of their experiences of being homeless. I was then selected to be part of a job training program for skilled manufacturing jobs. Although I qualify for disability, I can and want to work to be productive. In recent years, I have begun to build a better life for myself. I live in a nice home in a safe neighborhood with a wonderful partner. And I am getting the mental health treatment and counseling that I need. I do volunteer work. I have great relationships with my children, and I'm very optimistic about my future. But I know how quickly untreated trauma can spiral into despair, and how important it is for us to have access to mental health treatment, not jail.
My name is Piper Hodson, and I am a member of St. Lawrence Episcopal Church and Lake County United.
Hi, I'm Mike Grondin, and I'm a social worker at Elgin High School and a member of the Elgin Teachers Association and IEA. The amount of mental health issues, particularly depression and anxiety in the past few years since I first started, have increased dramatically. Recently, I've had some students that were hospitalized for mental health issues that had to wait about 3 months to get ongoing treatment after they left the hospital. Our member institutions learned through conversations that mental health is a big issue and it's not going away. Through hundreds of research meetings with county officials, police officers, judges, sheriffs, service providers, hospitals, and successful efforts down in Florida, we came up with a 3-point strategy that we'll share in a few moments. To fund mental health services, we need to look at where the money is being spent right now.
Approximately 1 in 3 individuals in county jail or prison are mentally ill. This contributes to repeat offenders returning to jail. This is how much we as taxpayers will be spending over the next 5 years just on people returning to jail over and over again. More than $16 billion. So if we don't want to keep putting people who need treatment in jail, we need to do 3 things. We need police training, crisis stabilization units, and affordable supportive housing. First, increasing crisis intervention training for police. This is a very specific training program that has proven to give police the skills they need to de-escalate someone in a mental health crisis. Second, if the police de-escalate, they need to take that person someplace other than jail or the emergency room. They need a place open 24/7 that can address urgent mental health needs. There are existing models in this region. Some are connected to hospitals, some are independent standalone centers. Some are for-profit, some are nonprofit. We don't need to recreate the wheel. We simply need to increase the number of these crisis stabilization units. And finally, if people are treated in the hospital, but they don't have a stable place to live, they will keep going back to the hospital or jail. So we need housing that is affordable and has services connected to it. This housing unit is in my town, Mundelein. When this proposed housing went before the mayor and board of trustees, I joined with others to say, yes, I want this in my backyard. 40 affordable units replaced this closed down factory, and the village receives 3 times more in property taxes. 25% of the apartments are for those with a physical disability or mental illness. All are affordable. Each of our 4 counties have made real progress on these goals locally, and the Attorney General can be an important ally to further this effort. The Attorney General can help us access data needed to negotiate with insurance companies to fund 24-hour crisis stabilization units. They can direct funds from legal settlements and other sources toward affordable housing. These are all very reasonable goals within reach that can have tremendous impact.
Buenas tardes, sir. I'm a parishioner with St. Rita of Cascia Catholic Church and with the Southwest Organizing Project, a member of United Power for Action and Justice. Back in 2012, my neighborhood was struggling to survive, dealing with over 11,000 foreclosures, 650 vacant properties, rising crime and declining schools. But at St. Rita's, SWAP, and United Power, we knew that we could reclaim our neighborhood by saving families for foreclosure, acquiring and rehabbing vacant homes, and by building a pipeline of prospective renters and homeowners to occupy these properties. Reclaiming Southwest Chicago was born. It was born out of relationships, people talking to people. We met with the Attorney General, we laid out the plan, and then we asked them to invest national foreclosure settlement dollars into a reclaiming initiative. So I have good news for you. We got $3 million. And is that we requested $3 million was not enough to rebuild a neighborhood, but it was good to get us going. We then did the hard work of turning $3 million into $50 million worth of investment into vacant and abandoned properties. In order to rehab them, yes. In order to rehab them, put them back on tax rolls, and turn them back into decent homes for our families. 5 years later, we have made much progress. In our 20-block target area around Cerritos, we have created over 100 affordable homes and apartments. We have reduced the number of vacant addresses from 93 to 13. We have reduced violent crime by 55% and improved academic outcomes in our local schools. I am so proud to be part of this campaign, and my neighborhood is vibrant again. But there is still 200 vacant and abandoned buildings in a broader 70-block area. We need leadership. We need leadership in our state to finish our work in Chicagoland and to take this to other organized neighborhoods. Gracias.
Thank you. We have one more strategy to lay out. But first, we now want to ask the candidates a question. Reverend Mike Solberg, can you please take the lead?
My name, and I am a pastor at Union Church in Hinsdale and part of DuPage United and Metro IAF. It is a joy to be with all of you here today, and it is a particular joy to be with you candidates. I want to note that we are disappointed that Kwame Raoul has decided not to show up today. We just met with him on Friday, and he did answer our question in the affirmative to meet with us for a mature working relationship within 30 days of the election, but I gotta say, that's not off to a great start. So it has been good to meet with all of you, in addition to be in some of the pre-meetings that we've had together with you. And as you know, we are seeking a mature, ongoing relationship with you, with the new Attorney General. In this relationship, we expect responsiveness when we contact you, and for you to contact us when we can be helpful and collaborative. We'll address the current issues that you're hearing late about in these stories and strategies today, and we need you to be responsive within like 24 hours when threats arise to our communities due to hate crimes. Therefore, we ask you, with your affirmative response being to stand, this question. If elected in November, will you meet with us within 30 days of the election and then continue in this ongoing relationship? Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you as either the new Attorney General or in your positions of leadership. And remain standing if you would.
So the candidates have just committed to meet with us in 30 days if they're elected. I want to know, will you, those assembled here today, be there 30 days after the election? Our 85 institutions made commitments to one another to be present today, here. And we've got 9 months to work until our meeting with the new Attorney General. So we want to know, will you commit to come back a stronger, deeper base of power when we meet with the next Attorney General? Will we work to be over 100 institutions strong? Will we have even larger teams within our institutions? Will we have even more organized money to support our work? We will be with you, Mr. or Ms. Attorney General. Please be seated. Another issue, front and center in the news today, but we've been working on it for several years. Parkland High School is just the most recent story of horrific gun violence. But we know that this issue is deeper and broader than one tragic event. Rose, Diane, and Yvonne, please come to the microphone.
My name is Rose Mabwa. I'm a member of Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Oak Park. I work as a manager for affordable housing on the south and west side of Chicago. My work involves meeting with residents and talking with them about ways to strengthen their community. But the problems we try to address are much bigger than any one thing that the police, the residents, or I can do on a daily basis. I want to tell you how much violence and addiction affected just 1 week of my work. It began with the tragic shooting of Commander Bauer in downtown Chicago. This stopped me in my tracks. I knew Commander Bauer. Last November, we volunteered together greeting 10,000 Puerto Ricans flown by United Nations to O'Hare Airport after Hurricane Maria. Commander Bauer was there 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. He demonstrated a concern for distressed Puerto Ricans, was caring and friendly. The same week Commander Bauer was gunned down, one of our properties was impacted by gunshots. 6 rounds of shots clearly heard by nearby mentoring and tutoring session. A peaceful learning environment was destroyed. And that same week, there was also an overdose and an attempted suicide by a good student, working hard to avoid the gangs and the negative pressure in the neighborhood, trying to stay afloat. This was 1 week. But unfortunately, it was not a rare week. The instances of gun violence persist in the daily lives of the residents in the weeks of my work. The neighborhood calling tree that I belong to sends alert anytime there is a shooting. And I get an alert almost every weekend. We know there is no one solution to addressing gun violence in Chicago or this country. But I refuse to accept that nothing can be done, that the gun manufacturers cannot act to make sure we are safe. Paul Bauer deserves better. The residents and the homicide victims deserve better. The young man facing the pressure of violence in his community deserve better. And we all deserve better.
Thank you, Rose, for sharing your story. My name is Diane Bosey, and I'm a member of Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Oak Park as well. As we all know, gun violence continues to rock our American way of life. In January 2013, United Power joined with other Metro IAF affiliates across the country to form our first national campaign to combat gun violence. Do not stand idly by. And we've been steadily working at it for 5 years. So we are well prepared to push our strategy to the forefront with the growing momentum. Our strategy is aimed squarely at the people with the most power to change the industry, the CEOs of gun manufacturers. Now, do you remember this scene from The Wizard of Oz? Okay, Dorothy and pals are standing in front of the big Oz and it's yelling at them and they're shaking and frightened. Then Toto runs off to the side and pulls back the green curtain, revealing a small man yelling into a microphone and pushing buttons. Now think about that scene as it applies to the gun industry. The NRA is the big Oz, the paid mouthpiece, and the gun manufacturers are the men behind the curtain, pushing buttons. It's not the NRA you need to focus on. It's these men, CEOs. So now why these three in particular? Well, Gaston Glock, manufactures the gun of choice for law enforcement. The other two publicly traded companies are led by James Debney of American Outdoor Brands, aka Smith & Wesson, and Chris Killoy of Sturm Ruger. Their guns, Smith & Wesson and Sturm Ruger, consistently show up more often at crime scenes. So here's what we want these CEOs to do. We want them to make safer guns, smart guns, guns that only fire in the hand of the rightful owner. So when I was 3, playing at a neighbor's house, my friend found his father's gun and snuck up behind me and put the gun behind my left ear and pulled the trigger. The bullet exited just below my right eye. I spent years in hospitals and doctors' offices. A smart gun would have prevented my accident. A smart gun would disable a stolen gun. A smart gun means a cop doesn't have to worry about her gun being turned on her. The second thing we want these CEOs to do is to clean up their distribution and retailer networks and reduce the flow of guns into the illegal market. So, how do we force these men to change their ways? Organized money. And we're organizing money in 2 ways. One, public sector gun purchasing. You, me, we're all gun owners. 40% of the guns and ammunition purchased in this country are for military and law enforcement, paid with our tax dollars. That's right. Today, we've organized 124 public officials across the country to influence as major customers. For example, the New York Police Department purchases large quantities of Glock's 9mm. And through the work of our campaign, New York's Commissioner James O'Neill has committed to meeting with Glock to press on our issues. The second way we're organizing money is through investors, both institutional and individual. We want to invest in these companies. Investment equals power. Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, the nation's largest investment firm, just announced it's using its $6 trillion in shareholder power to question gun manufacturers. Our team provided input on the questions to ask. We're also collaborating with large faith-based institutional investors like the Sisters of Bon Secours. When asked to join our strategy, they said, "How much should we buy?" Now, it's your turn. I want to include me as a shareholder in purchasing stock in one or both companies. You only have to have one share, and there's a sale going on with Smith & Wesson. The instructions for purchasing stock and registering as a do not stand idly by investor are on one side of the green handout. The other side is our investment principles, guidelines for every individual and institutional shareholder. Now I know the investor strategy isn't for everyone, and that's okay, because there are many other ways you can be involved in this campaign if you aren't currently, and that information is also on the green sheet. Together with our public officials and our institutional investors, we will change this industry. So I have a question for you. Do you agree gun violence is a problem? Do you want to do something about it? Are you ready to change the gun industry? All right, one more time, the candidates didn't hear you. Are you ready to change the gun industry?
My name is Yvonne Smith, and I am a parishioner at St. Nicholas in Evanston. which is also a charter member of the United States. Candidates for Attorney General, you have heard from us about the issues that we are most passionately committed to. Now we want to hear from you about these issues: gun violence, diversion of nonviolent persons from mental illness, from the criminal system, and affordable housing. How and why will you relate to us on these issues? What is your response to the strategies that you've heard this afternoon? We now ask each of you to take 3 minutes, just 3 minutes, to address the Assembly with your reactions.
And a couple of housekeeping details. We'll ask you to speak from the podium on your left. And we are reasonably strict about time limits as part of an IAF organization. See these folks right here? They have signs to let you know 1 minute, 30 seconds, and a big red stop sign. And after that 3 minutes is over, we will move on to the next candidate. And if you have more to say, we welcome that following the Assembly. And all of you, we also invite you to talk to the candidates, those who are able to stay afterwards. And there will be their names on signs around the edges of the auditorium so that you can see where to go to talk to a particular candidate. And Mr. Grasso, we ask you to take the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I stayed. Yes. I stayed because I'm going to the same opponent is going to, and I'm speaking there also. I hope I don't get a ticket driving there. It's in Rockford. But I stayed. I stayed because gun violence is unacceptable. Right. We have to, as a community, continue to speak on it. You need to stay active. Because only when you stay active do we listen. There was a pre-meeting to this because your leadership felt it that important to explain these things to all of the candidates. It was very helpful for me. I'm a former mayor, Burr Ridge, 2 terms. I am on the DuPage County Board. I'm not running for re-election. I want this job. And I'm the chairman of the 911 board in DuPage County, the largest 911 board in Illinois. And we see the growing problems at that level of mental health, opioid and heroin problems, homelessness, and gun violence, yes, in DuPage, throughout Illinois. And I am committed to addressing gun violence as a priority. We do need crisis stabilization. I was also on the DuPage County Board of Health for 12 years, from 1999 to 2011. And we continuously saw problems with mental health, which needs to be addressed. And what did we always find at the board level? NIMBY, NIMBY, NIMBY. You know what I mean? We wanted to provide housing at the board, always got pushback from the communities. So it's important, if the people in Mundelein stood up for Fairhaven, you need to follow that example and have it happen. I am committed to crisis stabilization. I get it. I saw it for 12 years. I'm committed to providing housing, and I'm committed to diversion programs. And what can I do as Attorney General? Use the bully pulpit, this one that I'm using now, because that's what the Attorney General does. He or she advocates for you.
Thank you, Mr. Grasso.
But it's a topic that I've had to have conversations with my own children about on the basis of gun violence directly outside of our home. And it's disturbing. It's a disturbing conversation to have. I've got personal friends who've lost their children to gun violence within a half mile away from my home. So that's why I've committed myself historically to fighting this same gun violence. That's why I committed myself to passing gun dealer licensing in the General Assembly. I committed myself to background checks on private transfers of guns. But I've also committed myself to making sure that we embrace a criminal justice reform diversion. I personally sponsored multiple bills creating diversion programs, including diversion for the mentally ill. So, as I commit to these principles and the principles of housing and crisis intervention, I do so not with just a promise of what I will do in the future if elected Attorney General. For me, this is a continuity of work that I've been involved with for a long time, throughout my 25 years of the practice at law, and certainly throughout the 13 years that I've served in the General Assembly. I've reached across the aisle because I don't believe this is a partisan issue. For me, this is just a humane issue. This is an issue that everybody should be on board with, issue for me. And that's why I'm committed to these principles. Thank you.
Mr. Jesse Raoul to the podium.
Ruiz. I'm Jesse Ruiz, and honored to be here with you all today, and appreciate the opportunity to have spoken with some of the leaders on these issues earlier, and your Attorney General, because I want to help solve some of our most pressing issues like I've been trying to do for the bulk of my life. So I grew up in the far south side Roseland neighborhood of Chicago that's seen its fair share of challenges. And so when I returned from the University of Illinois in 1988 and got involved in the community trying to keep young men alive, I started a Little League team. Kept a lot of those kids alive. I wasn't successful with Raul Hurtado and Jorge Jaramillo, who were shot to death, involved in violence in our neighborhood. I myself was held up at gunpoint, a block from my home when walking around. So I remember what it's like to be up against a wall, my hands like this, with a gun at the back of my head, and wondering, am I gonna walk away from this? Thank God I did. And so those things don't leave you. They are part of you forever. And so you wanna find solutions. So I'm glad I majored in economics at the University of Illinois, and I went to a law school, the University of Chicago, that founded law and economics. And so I love market solutions to problems. And so in terms of getting gun manufacturers to do the right thing, yes, we can exert public pressure, but economic pressure is a lot more effective. And I would hazard a guess, even those of you who won't buy the share of stock today, you probably already own a share of stock through your 401k plans, through your pension fund. If you look at CalPERS and other big investors, public pension funds own shares in all kinds of companies that if you dig a little deeper, you find out. And because we have say on pay rules now at the SEC, because we have shareholder initiatives that can get put forward, we can exert a lot of public pressure and make a lot of noise, and you can vote those shares. So we can go forward and move the needle on some of these issues with our economic pressure. Use both. Use both. Use the law and sue when necessary. But I know hitting folks in the pocketbook is oftentimes more effective. And so when I was the CEO of Chicago Public Schools, I realized that we've got problems where we don't have the dollars to fix these problems today. So we've got to squeeze the balloon and make sure that the money we're spending on incarcerating people, we spend on educating people. We'll spend $40,000 a year to incarcerate somebody 15 to 20, but we won't spend $13,000 a year on educate somebody P to 12, take care of their mental health issues, make sure there's housing. Hospitals are discovering today for repeat customers who are homeless, if they fund an apartment at $3,000 or $4,000 a month, they can save $30,000 or $40,000 a year in medical costs. We must be smarter. And I look forward to working with you on these issues every single day I'm Attorney General. You will have my number 24/7.
Thank you, Mr. Ruiz. Nancy Rotering.
And as she's coming to the candidates, the Attorney General can access a great deal of public money to address the various issues, including the gun issue, so it's an important theme.
Thank you, IAF. I am Nancy Rotering. I'm currently a mayor. I can't tell you how delighted I am to see all of you, because as a mayor, I've been trying to create something like this with community advisory groups. Had I have known, I want your number 24/7, so I will be absolutely in touch and appreciate all that you bring to the conversation. With liberty and justice for all, that's why I'm running. I am of the grassroots, and I am of the community, and that's why I'm here today, and that's why I appreciate so much of what you do. Let's talk about some of the issues that matter to you. Here, I banned assault weapons and large capacity magazines. We were sued by the NRA, and we were taken to the United States Supreme Court, and because of our case, it is constitutional to ban these weapons of war in Illinois. Unfortunately, state preemption currently has shut that opportunity for other communities, and in the wake of Parkland, I've received numerous calls from communities asking, can we have your ordinance? And I gladly send it to them with the caveat, you can't do anything about this until the law changes. So feel free to talk to our representatives after this event and tell them it's time to make that change to let communities take action to keep themselves safe. As a mayor, I also created a legal aid clinic because after doing a human services needs assessment, I realized that people needed access to justice. So we now provide free legal services in the areas of housing, immigration, and domestic violence, because I feel if you're at risk of losing your home or your family or possibly your life, you deserve to have access to an attorney no matter where you live, no matter what you can afford. And that's a model I wish to take throughout the state. I've traveled this great state, and I can tell you there are needs everywhere, and I know the people in this room know it more than anything. So one of the issues that we deal with, gotcha, 1 minute, housing. So we've been doing inclusionary housing in Highland Park and affordable housing since 1968. That's where I'm the mayor, and I'm proud to continue to support that. We have a requirement that 20% of new developments provides affordable housing, but we also are working with and providing incentives for housing for young adults with developmental disabilities, focusing on the very real needs of housing for people who may not be as able. And so that's been a priority for me. Super quick, we'll talk about mental health care. I did stand up. This is a journey that many members that I know, people, friends, that I have been working with have traveled, and we know how terribly difficult it is. But it's more so in our prison system, which is disproportionately impacting people of color. We need to provide mental health care, not just in jail, but in the community. We need to talk about people's addiction to drugs because of the trauma that they're experiencing and the normalizing of violence that has occurred in their neighborhoods. I'm getting the hook, but I know the issues. I'm eager to talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's very good to be here. I've been to this occasion on numerous occasions when I was governor. I remember the importance of investing in housing. It helped us get a capital bill that had $140 million for the first time ever for housing in Illinois. And that includes supportive housing. Housing for those with disabilities, housing for those who, and I think it's important to invest in housing. You always need revenue, and you have to fight hard for that. Working with SWOPE on the southwest side, making sure that we housing that occurred there and made it affordable housing for people in dwelling. So I think that's a very important issue, and it relates to the whole mental health issue. With respect to crisis intervention training units, we want to definitely, as Attorney General, go after the insurance companies to see, have them see the economic reason why they should invest in these units in every part of our metropolitan area and every part of our state. I think it's also important that the Attorney General, when they get fines and fees and settlements, use that money to help work with local governments, local law enforcement for crisis intervention training units. I think it's important also for people who have mental health challenges that they have an opportunity to not live in an institution, a segregated institution, but rather to have community care. When I was governor, I closed down institutions and invested all that money, all that saving into community care, and invested in local opportunities for people to live in the community to deal with their issues. I think also when it comes to the issue of guns, it's important that if we're going to deal with gun safety, we have to deal with the gun manufacturers. I think the Attorney General really should seek ways to sue the government gun manufacturers. When I was governor, the families from Newtown, Connecticut actually came to our state. They stayed at the governor's mansion. We went over and fought for a limit on high-capacity ammunition magazines, also to abolish assault weapons. And those families knew firsthand that those gun manufacturers are really the ones who fund the NRA. They now have a lawsuit in the Connecticut Supreme Court. I think it's very important to look at that lawsuit, support it. I think we need to do the same thing in Illinois. Related to that is this whole strategy of using proxies and economic power to go after the gun manufacturers. I think this is a very prudent strategy. I served as state treasurer. I was on the state investment board. I dealt with the major pension funds that own millions of shares of stock, both public and private pension funds. We've got to use our economic power to get those particular institutions, and also banks, insurance companies, and many others that deal with us, to use their proxy power at the annual meetings of these publicly held gun manufacturers, to have them change their policies, to have a smart gun that cannot be used by others. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Mr. Mariotti, we welcome you to the podium.
My name is Renato Mariotti, and I represent something different. Unlike some of these people you heard from, I'm not a career politician. I'm not somebody who comes before and who you never hear from in between those two elections. I am somebody who's more like you trying to be up here instead of somebody up here trying to pretend like there's someone like one of you. So who am I? I was born literally into nothing. I mean, my parents didn't go to college. My dad didn't even graduate from high school. They both worked 2 jobs. My dad's a cashier at Walmart. And he was so proud. When I graduated from law school, I became a federal prosecutor, and I spent many years fighting crime, particularly white-collar crime, going after people who were victimizing the elderly and the vulnerable in our society. Now, when I left the my job as a federal prosecutor a year and a half ago, after a bout with cancer that I was fortunate enough to win, I decided to fight for the issues that I cared about, and to be someone like all of you organizing. And really, that's why I'm up here today. I am somebody who, for example, one of the issues that I spoke to your leadership about was immigration. I am somebody who has been writing and publishing about the issues facing us, all of us, thanks to Donald Trump's hateful and racist immigration policies long before I was running for office, because we need to do something about it. And I'm running for office, I'm running for Attorney General, so I can be somebody who can actually be on the front lines using the legal system to do something about it. And, thank you. Now, I am running a different kind of campaign. It's not, everyone up here is putting hundreds of thousands of dollars of their own money, or they're taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from special interest. And what I'm taking is the thousands of people, the thousands of supporters that I have and I organize, and I'm raising small contributions from each one of them. And I am talking to them. I talk to every person who contributes $5 to my campaign, or phone banks or text banks. I do teletown halls. I'm on Twitter and Facebook every day talking to them. That's how you know I'll be talking to all of you when I'm in office. Now, what about these issues we talked about? I've already written and published a plan for how I'll take on Donald Trump's immigration policy. You can go to my website and read it, and read my policies on a lot of other issues. As to the gun manufacturers, look, I believe we need to ban assault weapons throughout the state of Illinois, but we also need to make sure that our municipalities are purchasing smart guns. That's the way to change the activity of these gun manufacturers, to incentivize them. We also need to take action to reform our criminal justice system. As I told the United States Senate, we have an incarceration epidemic in this country and in this state. We have over 130% incarceration, and that means we need to incentivize people going out and seeking pardon and clemency from their governor. We also need to reform sentencing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mariotti.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think to understand what my answers are, I think you need to know a little bit about me and my background. When I was in law school, I worked for the Legal Assistance Foundation, the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless. We talk about housing. I saw every single day people without a house, people living under a bridge. I was part of a lawsuit that sued the Chicago Public Schools. What they're doing was kicking out homeless school children purely because they didn't have a house. 4, 5, 10, 12 times in a school year, homeless school children were kicked out of their school. I was part of that lawsuit that actually stopped that practice. That's what I did in law school. And in 2000, when I graduated from law school, if you can recall, the economy was very good. I didn't apply to be a big corporate attorney. I didn't apply to be a tough on crime prosecutor. I applied for one job, to be a Cook County public defender. Because of some fundamental beliefs I have. Number one, the human dignity of us all. Number two, that the right to counsel aren't just some words on a piece of paper. They're a moral contract. And number three, this criminal justice system is not fair and is racist. I knew that then, and I know that now. And that's what I've been doing my entire career as a civil rights attorney, representing individuals from the NATO protests who were arrested, the Occupy Chicago protesters who were arrested for no reason other than they were protesting against income inequality. That's what I did as an attorney. And that's what I want to do as Attorney General. I want to be the greatest advocate for justice that you have ever seen. So when we're talking back and forth, within 30 days, I promise you, we will talk about these issues. And these issues are paramount importance. The company, the entity who's responsible for inundating our communities every single day with guns, the supply way outnumbers the demand. And they're not being held to responsibility. We must go after the gun manufacturers. Yes, let's invest in them. Yes, let's take them over. And yes, let's sue them for every single penny they have. That's what I will do as Attorney General. And in 30 seconds, I'll tell you what else I'm gonna do. When it comes to the criminal justice system, we must end mass incarceration. And the way we end mass incarceration is end this racist drug war. We are gonna look back today, tomorrow, 50 years from now, and realize that this is one of the worst domestic policies ever. That's what I'll do as Attorney General. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein.
He comes to the stage. I just want to say that we've been, of course, addressing working on our strategies on these issues for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and it's important that we as a people continue to push our strategies as a way to address some of the ways that the candidates have been talking about.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here today. These are important issues, and I'm delighted to be here to talk about them. But I also have to tell you, I stand here humbled, absolutely humbled, by the tremendous commitment that you all show to these issues, by the ingenuity and innovation that you show in the way you approach them, and by the accomplishments that you've already achieved in these areas. It's just amazing. I am in this race because I believe that I have this very unique personal and professional background that actually makes me uniquely qualified for this office that has become so incredibly important. I was born into the Jim Crow era, and I have spent the last 35 years as a woman of color working primarily in male-dominated environments. So I can tell you, I've been standing up to bullies and bigots my whole life. Yeah, I've served as an assistant attorney general. I've served as a federal prosecutor, and I've served as a leader in police reform, but most importantly, I've already been responsible for leading an agency responsible for complex legal matters. And I believe that this is why that 5 major newspapers in Illinois have endorsed, out of all the 8 candidates on the Democratic side, have endorsed my candidacy. I'm really proud of that because they recognize that I have both the experience and the independence to do the job right. Now, getting to your issues, we absolutely cannot jail people who have mental health problems. And this is why, as Chief Administrator of the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, when I was reviewing a case that involved a gentleman who was clearly in mental health crisis, who clearly needed medical intervention because he was visibly bleeding, the officers took him to jail. They then brutalized him when he was in jail and dragged him up the hall of the jail. Eventually, he made it to the hospital where he was administered a sedative that took his life. And in reviewing this case, I actually recommended to the police department significant changes to their crisis intervention program that starts with the way 911 calls are taken. And all goes all through the system to make sure crisis intervention and crisis trained officers respond, but also that there's reporting so we can see what progress we're making in this area. Housing issues. We have to absolutely get rid of not in my backyard, and I plan to use the full rule of law and the power of the office to advocate for housing for not only for people with disabilities, including mental health issues, but also for the recently incarcerated. Gun violence is something that we absolutely must address as well. And we have to hold all of the stakeholders accountable, the manufacturers and the dealers, law enforcement and our legislators and our political leaders who are making decisions about these issues. These are all things that I look forward to working on as your next Attorney General. As an attorney, I have only represented you, the citizens of Illinois, and I hope to continue doing that as your next Attorney General.
Thank you, Ms. Fairley. Scott Drury to the podium.
Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? My name is Scott Drury. I'm a current state representative. I'm a former federal prosecutor hired by Pat Fitzgerald, where I worked on taking down corrupt public officials. I worked on getting dangerous guns off our streets and taking sexual predators out of our neighborhoods. To clean up the state of Illinois and make Illinois a state that we can all trust again. I'm the only Democrat in the House of Representatives in the last 3 decades who had the courage not to vote for Mike Madigan for Speaker of the House, because I know, and we know, that the state needs to change. It needs new leadership. And what does that leadership look like? Well, in 2013, when we passed the Concealed Carry Act, which I voted against, there was a provision in that bill that said in Illinois, there is a ban on assault weapons bans. We're the only state in the nation that did something that stupid. Before that law passed, the law had a 10-day window. It said after the law passes, municipalities have 10 days to pass an assault weapon ban, a period that could not have been accomplished. So before the law passed, I got the mayors of my communities that I represent. I got the police chiefs of the communities I represent. I got them together in a meeting in my office and I said, this law is going to go into effect. You need to pass these assault weapons bans before the law goes into effect. And you know what we did? We got Highwood to pass an assault weapons ban. We got Highland Park to pass an assault weapons ban. We got North Chicago to pass an assault. Deerfield did something great. Deerfield said, you know what, we're not ready to pass an assault weapons ban, but we want to preserve our ability to do it. And they did, over strenuous NRA objection. You know what Deerfield did this week? They reopened the discussion and they are going to pass an assault weapons ban. And that's the leadership that we need when it comes to the issue of incarceration and mental health. I was one of only 2 Democrats appointed to the Illinois State Commission on Criminal Justice and Sentencing Reform, the sole goal, which is to reduce the prison population by 25% by 2025. At the same time, I proposed a task force to deal with the issue of using prisons for mental health treatment, using prisons for drug addiction, which we know doesn't work. We have a report that's out there. You can go online and see it. We have the solution to deal with the issues. So why do I want to work with IAF and all of its partners? Because I've already been working on these issues with you and with others, and I want to continue that conversation. We need leadership not just when people are running for office. We need leadership not just when it becomes politically convenient to have leadership. We need leaders who will do things before it's popular. We need leaders who will take the lead, who will lead from the front instead of from following behind. My name is Scott Drury. I'm running for Attorney General, not just to earn your vote, but to earn all of your trust. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you very much, candidates. Thank you for respecting the time limit. We very much appreciate that. Although the race for governor really has gotten the lion's share of attention, especially in the media, we want to re-emphasize what was said during the frame at the beginning of this time. The Attorney General is a very important position for working specifically on our issues. So we look forward to working with whichever one of you wins in November and continuing the relationship to work with you in the future. Thank you.
The collective energy of DuPage United, Lake County United, Fox River Valley Initiative of Kane County, and United Power of Cook County, the power of 85 member institutions and their people, is a force for common good. Today, we are committing to continue working towards the following goals: increasing crisis intervention training for law enforcement first responders so they have the tools to de-escalate encounters with persons with mental health issues. Establishing crisis stabilization sites so that police have an alternative to jail or ineffective emergency rooms for persons with mental health issues. Responding to hate crimes and creating a safe place for immigrants and minorities.
And building affordable housing and cutting crime rates in places like Chicago Lawn, and bringing the pressure of the marketplace to force gun manufacturers to sell smart guns and to hold the bad gun dealers accountable. These are issues that we care about, yes? Yes. These are issues we care about, yes? Yes. These are issues and problems we're going to address together, yes? Yes. And we're going to work with our Attorney General, yes?
Yes. We have come to the end of this action, but we invite you to stay after and meet with the candidates who are able to stay. They will be here, each by a sign with their name on it. Those of you who were part of the planning of this meeting, the logistics team, the floor team, the agenda team, and the speakers, please join us in room 145 at 5:30, that's in 15 minutes. Is there a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.